Hello, and welcome to Introducing Me. I'm your host, Sarah. I started this podcast to get to know other people and lifestyles while discovering more about myself. Each episode, I will give a new guest a chance to discuss their background, culture, interests, or whatever they want to talk about to help increase all of our own worldviews. Today, I would like to introduce you to Lisa Love. She is a queer life coach, a survivor of Mormon patriarchy and child abuse. She is currently experiencing with she, they pronouns, and she's 2 years sober. And she has so much more in her life that she could talk about, but we thought that those were some of the topics we might get covered today. So I'm excited to hear about all her stories and what she's got to share in her life. So Lisa, why don't you go ahead, say hello, and tell us a little bit more about your story.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Love, and I'm so excited to be here and chatting with Sarah. I'm currently a life coach, and prior to life coaching, I was teaching yoga and mindfulness before the great pandemic pivot. so, and I'm a mom. I have a 13-year-old, and we live on the coast in California, and we're looking forward to getting back into socializing again after getting vaccinated. It's been a long year, but we've gained a lot of gratitude from surviving this year. So happy to be here. Thank you, Sarah.
Yes, thank you for being here. And if I can't edit out the weird noises that occasionally might be happening, Lisa's neighbor is doing construction. So that's always fun. You kind of just
Hey,
take whatever gets thrown at you.
that's right.
So, you're a mom, you said, you've got a 13-year-old and one of the things that I said is that you're experiencing with she, they pronouns. So can you talk a little bit about that, especially as being someone of an older generation than someone who's in their teens or 20s?
Yeah. Thank you. That's a great question. Over this last year, the pandemic, being in shelter in place, has really given me a lot of time for introspection. And as I've stepped more and more into the queer community, I've been just kind of noticing how I feel in my body and all of those kind of questions that came up for me. And I started to just question my gender. It wasn't anything that I had ever really done before, but little kind of signals along the way, like just not feeling comfortable in my body, um, made really kind of sparked that, inquiry and just kind of taking a closer look at it um, without judging it and without just kind of dismissing it either. Just actually really like examining it. Like, is this what's going on for me? Um, and just really taking a look at that. So I realized that I've kind of always just felt, um, it's hard to describe. Like for me, it's it's like not a gender. It's like, um, there's just a part of me that's just not, I wouldn't say is really any gender. So like I said, I've just been really examining that and coming to terms with it and feeling comfortable, leaning into that and using different pronoun to identify with. And it feels good. It feels, and I'm seeing more and more people come out, like Demi Lovato just came out as non-binary. And I'm appreciating that as well. I think a lot of people have made new self discoveries in this last year. Yeah.
Yeah, and the news about Demi literally came out today, the day that we are recording. So, you're seeing more people come out as non-binary. The response that Demi got has been decently positive. What was the result or the story for you and your family, your friends? How has that been handled?
Well, it's been great. I mean, there hasn't been any um, pushback or any negative responses. I really first talk to my husband about it, because I was like, he's the closest person to me, and I was like, I wanted to kind of try it out, also like expressing it and talking about it, um, but also wanting him to know that I was going to be talking more about it. So wanted him to be aware of that. But he was very he was a little surprised, but he was also like not surprised. So he was like, interesting. I mean, and I do think it's pretty common, because just because of our general kind of default understanding of gender, right? Like we kind of grow up thinking it's black or white. It's, one or the other. It's this binary. So I'm not surprised that he had that kind of reaction, but then very quickly was like, okay, well, yeah, it's, you, what I said, are you surprised? And he said, no, nothing that you do ever surprises me. Like, so I was like, okay. Cause we've been together for so long, for 24 years now. So it's, that's why I said he's like my best friend as well. And then just kind of putting it out there, sharing it, with the public. I haven't gotten any kind of a response, really. Um, so yeah, it's been good. It's been well received, and it feels good for me too to really acknowledge that part of me, and leaning into that more, and just accepting it as feeling more comfortable instead of feeling uncomfortable. Like I said before, I really didn't know what it was. So now I know what it is. And so that helps me feel even more comfortable. It's like, well, this is just who I am.
Yeah, and that's great to hear that there's been such a positive response and you have a good support in your husband. And has there been any changes beyond the being comfortable in your body, more comfortable with your life? Have you had any other changes that you've noticed yourself going through and changing and re-identifying?
Well, I've definitely, like I said, I just kind of wasn't feeling comfortable in my body. But I noticed throughout this last year, I don't, what I realized is that I don't like really being hyper feminine, even though I am perceived in that way and I've grown up in that way. And then sometimes I enjoy that, dressing up and being, super feminine, but in general, I don't. And so what I've realized is that's been an expectation that I've felt from my my upbringing and from society. And then just the way people respond to me is they appreciate the femininity, right? And so I've always kind of felt obligated to dress feminine, so that was a kind of a big change for me, is to realize oh, I can wear whatever I want. Like I don't need to fit this expectation of being super feminine. Again, sometimes I enjoy that and I like dressing up. Um, but most of the time I don't. I like to be in costume and dress up for occasions and things like that. But for the day to day, it's just dressing comfortably and not having to feel like I have to dress a certain way.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. Now, you mentioned, your upbringing and kind of this, the binary that we were kind of all taught and things have changed. So it's my understanding, you grew up in the Mormon patriarchy and you since left that. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I was born and raised in the Mormon church. And when I was 17, which was many years ago now, I left home and I left the church at that time as well. And it wasn't because, it was a few years later that I discovered that I was bisexual. So it wasn't for that reason. It was really just um, because of my father was just super controlling, and I was that just really aligned with the ideology of the church as well. And so we just really kind of came to heads. So when I was 17, I moved out through the emancipation process, left home, and was on my own, and just taking care of myself from a young age. But because of that religious ideology and just kind of really being born into it and not knowing anything else. It was like when I left home at 17, it was almost like I was starting over, in terms of like my understanding of the world. Like, I mean, I went to public school. I wasn't, that excluded from society, but it still wasn't like a normal upbringing. I went in high school, for example, I went to um, like it was called seminary. So I went to like before high school. So like at 7 a.m., I would go and study with my church group, then go to school. And then on Sunday, I would go to church as well. So it was so much part of our day to day. So when I moved out, I was able to, stop thinking like that and stop those kind of automatic behaviors, and just discover what the world was like. So it was, and then over the years, I've really done a lot more work of kind of shedding those beliefs um, and just opening up to the world as it is. And I think that contributes to my love of learning. Like I love to learn. I'm an avid reader, and I love to study new things, because I felt, pretty isolated growing up, that I wasn't exposed. I knew I wasn't exposed to like what was really going on in the world. It was pretty sheltered in that sense. So that contributed to just that upbringing contributed to those kind of ideologies, and then when I moved out, I was able to kind of do a lot of self-discovery. But initially, I was working two jobs and really taking care of myself, and the focus was really on survival until I, again, a few years later, got to college. I started to discover more about my sexuality. So yeah, it's been, I feel like I've lived many lives having started at that young of an age um, to be on my own and taking care of myself at that young of an age.
Yeah, that must have been difficult and extremely like life changing as you were talking about it. Now, by leaving the church and leaving your family home, does that mean that you no longer have a relationship with your family?
Yeah, I no longer have a relationship with my father and my stepmom, and um, her kids. But I do still have a relationship with my younger sister, and it's complicated because she still has a relationship with my father. So we essentially just agree not to talk about him, or try not to, as it comes up if it needs to. But for the most part, we've just, because we've had uh, difficult conversations, so we've just agreed that we're in different places, and we do value our relationship with each other. So that's really, the priority. But yeah, otherwise, and that was part of, and that's how I can really relate to being rejected by your family, because leaving home, and you know I was told, like, if you leave, you can't come back. Like you can't, you're leaving the church, you can't come back. And I got a lot of judgment and criticism from other people in the church when I left. And so, they really showed me their true colors, essentially. It's like, it's not a religion that is accepting of um, living your own life on your own terms. Um, so it's so yeah, I've grown up on my own, and make creating my own friendships, and creating my own chosen family, and certainly, all of us within the LGBTQ community, we have to do that as well, because we're most of us are in that same situation where we're not fully accepted by our family, and have to create the family, the support system for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what was it like creating like your own sense of purpose, if I'll call it, like while, after you were able to get through the like survival stages of being 17 and on your own and then getting into college and exploring things a little more?
Yeah, it was a great period of time for me. I started out, just taking community classes, and then I thought, I'd always had this interest in drawing, so I got a pamphlet from the Park and Recs department advertising like a drawing class, and so I was like, I'll just, let's just try. I was telling myself, let's just try the class. If I can do it, like that would be great. If not, like, I know I can't draw. Like I wanted to kind of see if I could draw. And so I took the class, and sure enough, I could. And so then I started taking art classes at the community college, and then ended up transferring to an art school in San Francisco, where I met my husband. And that process was very uh, just eye opening for me, because I did so much um, exploration, self exploration, and who I was. Like art school really forces you to look in the mirror, Um, so I really did that, and then at that time, I was my father's was a therapist, so I was always opposed to therapy and therapists, just because of my upbringing with him. But by that point, I think I was 24 at that point, and things were kind of starting. I was realizing, like, oh, I want to take a deeper dive into this. So I started doing therapy through the art school, through their um, therapy program, and that's when things really started to kind of come undone. But fortunately, the I had the ability to express what I was going through the medium of art, and I was taking photography and jewelry courses, as well as painting, and so I ended up focusing on painting, because it was just a lovely way for me to express my emotions, and kind of process everything that was coming up, and from my childhood abuse as well. Like a lot of that came up, as well as kind of dismantling the religious ideologies. So much, I would say, just kind of crumbled. But then I was able to rise again, essentially, uh, recreate myself, or rediscover, the person who I actually was. It's like I didn't really know who that was, because I was just kind of, I was following someone else's plan. I wasn't really following my own plan. So yeah, art school really was an incredible experience for me. Yeah.
And would you be willing to talk a little bit about your childhood abuse?
Yeah, I mean, it was my father abused me as a child, and it was sexual abuse, and it was something that he was abusing both me and well, all three of us, my three sisters, and yeah, it was really hard on us, because just the secrecy. And then, as a child, like it's so confusing. like what you don't really know what to make sense of it all. And then, I study now like the nervous system and the stress response and like just knowing all about that. It's like as a child you're put into this stressful state as well, which is really kind of discombobulating. Um so yeah, it really and I've always been kind of a shy, quiet person. Um so that just, contributed to my quietness even more. Um, our family, my parents got divorced when I was 4, so I was the abuse happened at the time when I was living with my father and my stepmom, um, and really, I think just at the time, I don't think it really was like an. If I just kind of look at it objectively, it really didn't impact the family, so to speak, because my father was just so in control and so dominating. But it was later when we started hitting our teenage years, my older sister started really getting rebellious, and I I think it was just hitting me more internally. But then once I hit 17, like I think that definitely contributed to my kind of sudden defiance of him. Like I was like, no, I think we're done here. I was like, I had an opportunity to leave, and I clearly saw that, but it was only in looking back that I was like, oh, I really um, seized the opportunity there. But in the moment, I just thought like, oh, I'm just dealing with this really overbearing person. Um, but yeah, I think it, gave me the onus to really leave in that moment, and I'm so grateful for that because I really honestly don't know what my life would be like if I hadn't left at that age. Because my older sister, she didn't leave, and till like maybe 2 or 3 years later, and then my younger sister, she still has a relationship with my dad. And I think that um, I was able to break that dependency. I feel very grateful for that because I just don't know that I would have the life I have now if I hadn't left then.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you sharing that. And it's absolutely wonderful that you were able to take that opportunity to leave, even if you didn't know at the time how much you would need it. So, how did you go from art school to yoga and mindfulness?
I know that's a big jump, right? Well, it didn't happen consecutively. I was I had started taking yoga with a friend, one of my husband's friends, um, probably probably a little bit after art school, but right around that time. And so I was taking yoga classes here and there, wasn't consistently. And then, but then as the years went on and I, continued to taking more and more classes and my practice progressed, um, I started thinking, I want to become a yoga teacher. Like I would love to be able to offer this to people and to share this practice because it's so feeds your soul. It's very supportive for you as an individual. It allows you that time and space to be introspective, and it also is it attending to your health needs as well. Like it's just body, mind, and soul. Like it's just it's really there for you. Um, so and then at some point, so the practice I was in though was Bikram yoga, which I had heard terrible things about him as an instructor, as a trainer. So I knew, even though I wanted to become a teacher, and the only practice I knew was Bikram yoga, I knew I did not want to train with him. I didn't want to go through his training. Um, so I started, asking around, and a friend of mine had taken a 200-hour vinyasa teacher training. And so I checked that out, and so that's where I ended up going. And but before that, I was working in a career within human resources, which was a pretty stressful job. It was highly administrative, but I was also dealing with a lot of employee relations issues, and it was just a lot of stress. So the yoga was a reprieve for me. And it was also like the impetus to like get out of that career. It's like, okay, let's do something else. So that was kind of the push, but also at that time I lost my mom. My mom passed away. And then right in the middle of my yoga teacher training, my older sister passed away. So having lost both of them really, um, again, pushed me into making that career change because there, the money's not there. It wasn't like a big financial move to go teach yoga. But it was more like, the heart and the passion to want to be in a career that I feel, gives me that sense of purpose that I feel really, um, I feel really good about. So unfortunately, my husband supported me, and I was able to make that shift. But um, and it was such, I loved teaching yoga and mindfulness. It was so rewarding. And that's, I continued to teach mindfulness in my coaching practice. Yeah.
Do you have any hopes or plans to go back to teaching yoga once it's a little bit safer?
I might. I don't have any plans, but a friend of mine before the pandemic hit, I was teaching yoga full time, and I was teaching 5 classes a week and workshops, monthly workshops. And I was teaching restorative yoga. So I was teaching restorative yoga and offering these workshops with a friend of mine who does sound healing. And so she and I were had a great year the year before, and then we had planned a retreat to Bali together. Um, but that got canceled, and so that's still a possibility that we might still, because she still does a lot of sound healing and travels to Bali, so that's certainly possible that um, that kind of an event could still happen. I don't have any plans for it, but yeah, I think definitely as we open up, um, I'm excited by the in person gatherings and possibilities for events, right? Like I think um, as that opens up and it's as it's safe to have events, yeah, I'm excited to participate in those and whatever that looks like. And especially now that my focus is on the LGBTQ community, I'm excited to participate in events for the LGBTQ community as well. Yeah.
And what exactly is it that you do as a life coach?
Well, I offer individual one on one life coaching and to really help people, kind of uncover, who they are, what are their strengths, what are their values, what kind of mindset are they in, what's like, how are they holding themselves back, and then how can they really just lean into um, building their emotional resilience to overcome adversity. And the emotional resilience is it's exciting to me because it's something that I've really personally developed, just through my own life, and it's helped me tremendously. So having this skill set, like being able to recover quickly from challenges and setbacks, it really is just like with the mindfulness practice. It's something that you can strengthen, but it's also something that you can really utilize like intentionally. So in a stressful situation or a challenge, you can intentionally use it to support you to really get through whatever difficulty you're experiencing. So I'm really passionate about that. I also offer online courses and soon I'll be offering a group coaching program as well. Yeah.
And so, are you focused mainly on the LGBTQ community in your life coaching?
Yeah. Yeah. That's the primary community that I'm serving is the LGBTQ community. When I first started coaching, like during the pandemic, I had completed my life coaching certificate and was just kind of launching and was just, you know, in general offering it to people. But as I started really doing all the work to identify my ideal customer and really what who that looks like, um, I discovered I really want to serve this community and share with them, these tools to help them really overcome challenges in their lives and to really feel their sense of purpose, really create goals that are aligned with their values, and to really understand their strengths. I find that a lot of people don't understand what their strengths are, or they're not applying them in situations. So, I think that's always really insightful, and it's just so helpful in your day to day life. Like you just never know what's going to get thrown at you or what's going to happen. And so the more tools and skills you have to just, handle things and um, just keep going, it helps you just succeed in life and gives you a great sense of purpose.
And what's it like to go through as like a customer through a life coaching session?
For individual session, it's like we'll have an initial conversation about what your goals are, what your needs are, what your values are, and just kind of like, kind of a getting to know you session. And then the next step is to really define what your like an action plan based on your goals. So really coming up with those steps, those action steps towards your goals, and really making them achievable. So it really also depends on the person, like where you're at, what's actually achievable for you. And I really like thinking about things in really small steps, um, because then you're making progress. You can easily take one step at a time and then work towards your larger goal. And then after that, it's ongoing coaching sessions to really help you stay in alignment with your values based goals and continue working on your emotional resilience, because we all get derailed by things. Again, you just never know what's going to throw you off. But if you can recover quickly, then you can just get back on track. Yeah. So I can help people do that through coaching. And then also, I have an online course that can help them with that as well.
Cool. It sounds like going through life coaching is probably something that like everybody needs in their life.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. It's so helpful to have somebody have like an objective perspective, somebody who can see things that you're just not able to see. And then that can help you kind of see also your behaviors or your thinking that are kind of getting in your way. That again, you just get that perspective that you're not able to see yourself because you're in the midst of
Mhm.
it.
Definitely, yes. Third party perspective is always great. So, what else would you like to share with the listeners, whether that's about you, your life, really anything?
Well, I've also this last well, it's almost 2.5 years now that I've been sober. So that's something else that has really benefited my life and my ability to face my fears, to be more brave and courageous with, just each step of the way. And it was in 2019. So I think as I look back on it, it really contributed to my comfortability in coming out publicly, because that was the year I came out publicly as bisexual. And so yeah, it has also, it took me a long time to get to that point where I was like, okay, I'm done with this drinking, um, because it was just becoming such a part of my life. The drinking, the management of it, like having to manage, like, okay, who's going to drive, and then the recovery from drinking too much, like I can't do stuff on certain days, right? Like it was just getting to be too much. And um, the year before, I had discovered that I was anemic, was having some health issues, and it was because I was having heavy periods. So I addressed that, and so that year before I stopped drinking, I got a lot healthier. I was like, I could rely on myself. I could like, I didn't have to schedule around my period. Like that was also this thing I was managing. Like, oh, I can't plan a workshop on this weekend because I'm going to be out for the count. It's like just exhausted. So I think because I got that sorted, like I started to see the drinking in a new way as well, because I was like, oh, this is another thing I'm having to manage that's affecting my health. And so I just was tired of it. I just was like, okay, I don't want to deal with this anymore. It's like, just I got that clarity that I could really see how much time I was spending on managing it. And it caused a lot of health problems, and I felt just terrible, and because of it, the hangover was just so much to recover from.
So were you mostly drinking a lot at like periods of time, or were you also like just kind of like drinking every single day?
It was mostly social, like the social drinking. It's like, it's so ingrained in our society. I mean, it's also like once you once you stop drinking, it's like you realize, you see like how much advertisement, how much like everything is all about the drinks. It's like you can't go to a restaurant without being offered a drink at least 3 or 4 times. Like it's just everywhere you go, it's all about the alcohol. And um so it was the socializing, the drinking. I also it was helping me with my social anxiety. So it was like, okay, what's going on here? Who do I talk to, or what do I say? So have a drink, chill out. But then, um, what just the one drink leads to two and three. And then it's at some point your brain is not functioning properly. So you make bad choices. You think, oh, I can have another drink, or I can have another drink, not realizing that um, you've I've had plenty. I need to stop. um, and then I was drinking at home outside of social situations because it was my way to unwind and relax. So that was like kind of my evening routine as well. Not as much as I was drinking socially, but still, it all adds up. It was like I was not supporting my liver health in any way. And so yeah, um, it has it's been a great learning experience to learn new ways to relax and unwind, and not have this dependency on something in order to relax. Like now I know how to relax without having to use any kind of a substance. Um, and so it's very empowering. Yeah.
And did you struggle at all to switch to not drinking? I mean, like this past year, obviously, like socially going out hasn't been a thing. So that might have also helped, at least in the last year.
Yeah, it wasn't. Well, it's interesting though, because everybody I knew was drinking. a lot more during the pandemic. It was like, oh, and all the kind of like memes you'd see online. It's like, uh-oh, I'm drinking again. It's like, you know, everybody was like, oops, I've become an alcoholic. Uh-oh. It was like this joke. Um, so I didn't have the urge to drink, but I was very much aware of, had I still been drinking, that I would have leaned into that also for sure, because it was like a cultural thing of like, oh, let's drink because we're stuck at home. So I'm actually, I'm so grateful that I was out of the drinking, so I didn't fall into that. Um, Again, this kind of social uh, group activity, that was going on. Um, it's kind of like a game, it's like, let's drink. Okay, let's drink. It's like, who's drinking, who's not. And if you're not drinking, it's like, you're no fun, that kind of thing. So yeah, I didn't have any problems with not drinking during the pandemic, and I'm I'm grateful that I wasn't.
That's great. And you said it a little bit before about just like what society shows for drinking, all the marketing, the if you're not drinking, you're X. And I've taken personally a stance that I don't drink in public beyond with my significant other because it's this situation of if I were to drink socially and then I were to stop, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, I'm not looking to have children and or being pregnant, and I don't want you making those assumptions.
Right. Oh my God, that's so true. Right. Yeah, it's so ingrained in our society, and the restaurants make all the money. It's how anyone's going to make their money, right? It's like, we'll sell drinks, get that on the menu. They make so much money on drinks. And then people like, then there is the like the the soothing aspect of it, right? It's like you're soothing your nerves, you're like unwinding after a long day. Let's meet up for drinks, let's blow off some steam. Um, let's celebrate, let's go have some drinks. It's like all the drinking. It's like, let's drink. And it does take like you were describing, some strong a strong intention to be committed to your own values. Like, nope, this is where I stand. Like, if you're wishy washy at all, then you're probably going to drink. You have to have like a strong agreement with yourself, like in terms of where you stand.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think with one of the things you were saying, you said that you came out publicly as bisexual in 2019, but you realized you
Yeah.
were bisexual back when you were in college.
Hmm.
So you weren't back in college in 2019. So
Right.
what was the story there?
Well, I was out to my close friends, so like people I was close with or intimate with, I obviously was out to them, but I wasn't it wasn't something I felt comfortable like putting on display essentially, or broadcasting. And that was in the late 90s. That was also like granted, I was in San Francisco, everything was very supported, right? But I wasn't personally in the mindset of feeling comfortable, really. To me, it felt like, because of my religious upbringing, like it really was um, like a risky thing to do. Like it was like, oh, that's going to put me at risk. Like I definitely, because of my having left the Mormon church, I definitely kind of felt like I was in hiding from them for definitely through my 20s and some of my 30s, because the church really will try to claw you back. Like they're definitely interested in retaining their members, and so that just contributed to my kind of fear of really putting that out there. But I was also still, figuring it all out, and I think that is definitely something I appreciate about this generation and, just more and more people coming out is that there's that you don't have to have it all figured out before you come out, right? Like, it's just like, well, this is where I am today. This is where I am on my journey. And so I really appreciate that. It's like gives you permission to just say, hey, today this is where I'm at. Like tomorrow it might change and that's okay. Like it's not binary. It's like it doesn't have to be once I figure this out, then I'll let you know.
Yes. Now, with all of my guests, before I wrap things up, I ask a random fun question. In light of your neighbors during construction, what if you could do anything to the place that you currently live to improve your life, what would you choose to do?
Oh, what a great question. Oh, well, if I could do anything, of course, I would add like two more bathrooms and I would add like a whole nother I would add a whole addition with like my own private office and yeah, it's definitely the additional bathrooms would be great. Two bathrooms, not just one, two.
Not just one. Realistically, is there anything that you could do to improve your house?
Well, we just actually did some work in the backyard that we had to do for drainage, but ended up looking really nice. And our plan is to add one bathroom because we only have one bathroom currently. So it's quite a juggle, between the three of us. But we do have plans to add one bathroom, but probably, it's not on the calendar yet, but it's coming soon. Can't wait for that. And then the other thing is we're going to be finishing the garage so that it can be like an art studio. So that would be something that, again, it's in the plan. It's not on the calendar yet, but it's coming soon. Coming soon to a home near you.
All right, that brings this episode to a close. I will be leaving Lisa's website in the description. So that is lisalovehall.com. So you can find more information about the services that she offers. And of course, she's also on Instagram. So I'll be leaving that social media link in the description as well. And if you'd like to connect with the podcast, the website is in the description and that will bring you to our Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. So I'd love if you go and give those pages a follow. And if you would like to be a guest on this podcast, I'm always looking for new guests and you can feel free to reach out via email. And if you would like to support the podcast monetarily, we have a Patreon website where you can support monthly or as a one-time donation. All support is greatly appreciated. So thank you so much, Lisa, for spending time with me today, and to my listeners for taking the time out of your day to hear a new story. Until next week, bye.
Thanks, Sarah. I really enjoyed this.